Hello, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Danish Kazdar. So today we are going to discuss listed companies Code of Corporate Governance Regulations 2019, which is applicable. This is a highly important regulation for listed companies, and it can also serve as a guiding light for other companies. It could be listed, unlisted, public, private, whatever they are. So these regulations provide a really strong foundation for any company to follow the corporate governance practices. So there are around 36 or 37 regulations. So firstly, these are the definitions. As you can see that section 2 refers immediately to the definition. So before jumping into definitions, I would like to point out that these regulations work on a comply or explain approach, which means that you have to comply with the regulation, and where you are unable to comply, then you need to explain that what is the reasons of non-compliance. So this is a general approach, and then the regulation mention various provisions as mandatory. So the mandatory provisions are required to be complied regardless of the situation. So as the word itself indicates that it is a requirement, and of course which is not mandatory, so the company has an option to comply or not, but it is always recommended to comply with the provisions. So here you can see the explanations given here, the definitions. So the first regulation which we are seeing here, actually it's the number 3, is a number of directorships, that a director cannot be a director in any listed company, more than 7 listed companies. So director cannot be a director in more than 7 listed companies. So you need to take, if you have a board of directors, you need to take a declaration from your directors that they cannot be when they sign off on this statement that they are not directors of more than 7 listed companies. So this is a mandatory requirement. As you can see that mandatory is written. Second, then there is a diversity in the board. The board shall comprise of members having appropriate mix of core competencies. So the board needs to be diverse. You cannot have the board completely filled with finance people or with just marketing people. You need to have diverse, experienced people. Then there is representation of minority shareholders, which means that the company has the company does the elections, and of course the majority shareholder usually nominates its nominees, hence leaving less room for the minority shareholder. So in this you can read that the minorities members as a class will be facilitated by the board to contest the election of directors by proxy solicitation. So the regulation encourages to facilitate the minority shareholders, and the way to do that is to annex to the notice a statement by the candidate from the minority shareholders, including a profile of the candidate. So this needs to be circulated amongst the members of the company, so that the members, those who are voting for the shareholders, they need to know that there is the next person who is applying for the position of director in the election. So his profile needs to be made visible to the shareholders. Then there is a highly important provision, the independent director. It is mandatory that each listed company shall have at least 2 or 1/3 members of the board as independent, whichever is higher. So if a board has 10 members, then there should be at least 3 people as independent directors. And what is independent director? That is explained in Companies Act in detail. We would not go into that detail. So here you can see that female director, it is also a mandatory requirement for listed companies. So previously it was not a mandatory requirement, but now it is a mandatory requirement that the board must have at least 1 female director, and if it is not, then of course it would be a non-compliance. Executive director, should be at least, should not be more than 1/3. Who is the executive director? The executive director is a person who devotes whole or substantially whole of his time to the operations of the company. So it's usually the CEO, and if there is any other person, then these people cannot be more than 1/3 of the board. Then we have the chairman of the board. This is the most basic essence of corporate governance, that the CEO and chairman needs to be two different persons, cannot be the same person. So I hope you like the video, and we would continue this in the next video, inshallah. Thank you. Do not forget to subscribe.